Welcome to the Kind Futurist. We are your hosts, Helen Mekonen
and Urmilla Khan. We'll feature inspirational leaders and everyday heroes as we open the dialogue on what being wealthy really means for generations to come.
Welcome to this episode of The Kind Futurist. Today, we are going to be talking about the G in ESG, which is governance. In governance, when we think about the governance factors, there are topics of board independence to ensure that there isn't too much consensus.
Well, we do want consensus, but we'd like to hear from diverse voices.
Absolutely.
I mean, consensus is not such a bad thing, but it's okay to have diverse opinions as well, right? That's what brings the freshness and the perspectives.
Absolutely. You got to bring diverse voices, different opinions, different experiences, professionally, life experiences, geographical diversity as well is so important on a board, where you're able to really come up and make that best decision for the business problem or situation that organization is facing in that moment.
There's so much to talk about with respect to the board and the shareholders and, the responsibility of everyone. And then there's business ethics as well, right? Which is advocating for values like diversity, trust, and boldness. And those are traits really that highlight social relationships over workflow, right?
Absolutely. I mean, ethical behavior in business is really how the E and the S all ties together within the broader concept of ESG. When you think about critically, you have to be able to make to be responsible, to be respectful of one another, and really continue to move forward. Some of the pieces on the topic of G is about compensation, management compensation, board compensation, and then how does the factors or which factors or do all factors account to compensation for executives? There's a stat that over half of the S&P 500 companies have now incorporated ESG goals into their executive incentive compensation programs. That's huge. That is a lot of organizations that are really thinking proactively around how to essentially incentivize, but then reward individuals for the actions that they're taking as leaders within their organizations. Chipotle being one of those organizations, MasterCard, Apple. These are organizations that are tying in what they do as an organization, but what their leaders do, and then how they're compensated.
And how they're compensated. How that compensation is tied into the values, right, of the organization, of the individuals, whether in the boardroom. What is the culture of the organization? Is our company reflective of our personal values, of our organizational values? And so having everyone really pause to reflect on the importance, what's important to them, and being able to translate that into the good of others.
Absolutely. And there is no one size fits all sort of formula when it comes to G in an organization, because many organizations or all organizations are different from one another, although they compete with one another, but they're still going to be different in the way that they operate, how many individuals there are. And so it really is, to your point, Urmilla, a reflective exercise of who are we? And what are our values as an organization, and how do we continue to reflect that into the community, our customers, our vendors, and any other external party that we interact with?
The point that you made about tying compensation to those values, as opposed to having multi-million-dollar bonuses, I suppose, for those in the boardrooms, when in effect there may be a salary freeze hand in hand with that decision. So again, that holistic outlook.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And overall, there are for sure pioneers and organizations that are blazing trails with respect to G and governance and operating in an ethical way, being authentic, and encouraging leaders to also be authentic in the way that they manage their teams, manage their operations, and in our day-to-day jobs, we hear of so many of these phenomenal examples and brilliant leaders that are, given the opportunity to be themselves, their whole selves at work.
Authenticity, right, at the core of everything. Responsibility, integrity, ethics, as we mentioned before, and then how do we govern overall?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Those are all sort of elements that we wanted to bring in this conversation today to get your thinking, to get you to pause, to get you to evaluate and reflect.
I believe that's all for today.
That is. Thank you for joining us today at the Kind Futurist, and join us next time when we bring more conversations to shape our world.